This is the Two Marketeers Podcast, where hosts and marketing experts Sean Patrick and Lindsay Waugh seek to uncover what makes brands so powerful in how they impact modern society and culture.
Two Marketeers. They've got a podcast. The Two Marketeers Podcast.
Allergy season. Yeah, we're going to be snorking our way through this episode. Hello.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Morning, Sean.
Morning, Lindsay.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm chugging this Starbucks.
Yeah,
Do you have
baby.
yours? Cheers, my friend. Cheers. Hello, marketeers. Happy morning.
Happy morning, or whatever time of day it is when you listen to us.
Let's jump right in. And we're recording 2 episodes today, but you'll just hear this one and then you'll hear the next one when we launch it. So we're going to jump right in.
Full transparency. We hate transparency. Didn't we say that?
Did we say that?
You do. Yeah.
Black box.
I'm with you.
We would like everything inside a box that no one shall see until we release it into the world.
So much easier that way.
It's true. Well, our episode this morning is getting into something that we saw on System 1 around 15 years of Snickers, a modern classic. I feel like we talk about Snickers a lot just in our normal conversations. Such a memorable,
Well, it's Betty White.
classic. Yes, you're not yourself. You're not you and your hungry campaign.
Just to talk about the ad itself, it's that emotion and it was one of those brilliant uses of using humor, which for a chocolate bar or a candy bar, as they say in the US, is absolutely appropriate. But the humor wasn't in the brand, the humor was in the people they used and putting them, there's one trigger of humor is this sort of absurd mix of two things you don't typically mix. That's kind of like one mechanism.
Elderly folks and football.
Betty White specifically, right? A golden girl and mud football. And that's what comes, it's her talking like a football player is the piece I will never forget. The beautiful part is I associate that brilliant, hilarious moment that just sticks with me and just makes me feel, it brings humor. I associate it to a Snickers bar. Well done. And we've had those kind of conversations before where you're like, you want to be the water cooler talk, right? And it's the water cooler talk. I was watching something last night and this hilarious commercial came on, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember what the product was, blah, 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 blah. Oops. Well, what that is an indicator to me is a tactical approach to something that really, like, if it truly is a creative platform, it needs to be strategic. It needs to go deep. It needs to go wide, and it needs to learn as it goes to see where that nugget is. And I think that's what Snickers did. I think 15 years later, they know it works. And I guess they looked at it as an investment. It is something they invested in, and they're looking to protect and optimize that investment.
Well, I think too, they were trying to tap into something that's an emotional connection that rises above snacking. And I think a lot of the times now we're like searching for emotional connection. It helps to decommoditize products and all of those different things. But in this moment too, emotional connection doesn't have to be sad. In this moment, it was humor, and humor has longevity to it. And it changes and evolves with culture as well. So an excellent mode of emotional connection to help rise above being purely considered just another candy bar on the shelf.
Okay, so I have a couple questions, very quick.
Okay.
Number one, would you call Snickers, the Snickers brand, would you call it a creative platform, what they have, what we're going to talk about?
You're not you when you're hungry?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that was what it was when they conceived it?
Trying to make it a creative platform?
Yeah.
I think they tried to tap into a very relevant insight in a campaign. So they likely started by designing it as a campaign, and then probably during that process talked about the longevity potential of the campaign. So you're not you when you're hungry can apply to so many different things, so many different situations. So they're like, okay, we'll start with this campaign. And then they probably started to see some momentum around it, which likely moved it into more of a platform idea because they saw the performance and the legs around is what I'm going to assume happened.
Yeah.
I think
It's
usually one of two ways, right? Like you start with the intention of it being a creative platform. It's hard to know the longevity until you see performance of whether that will work or not. And then the other way is to start with it as a campaign and then see the momentum it takes on and kind of translate it and move it over time into being a platform. So I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's good. I just wanted your insight to be like, is it a little bit of that, since you and I have worked on pitches, and it's like going into it saying we are looking for a creative platform. It's like,
I don't know.
Was that what it was 15 years ago? I question that.
I mean, let's back it up for a minute so people know what we're talking about. So with Snickers, this launched 15 years ago. So that would have been 2010. They say at that time, the candy bar ad made by agency BBDO starred like dozens of celebrities over time, spawned various variations across social platforms, many different things. And the slogan and the culture for them like even entered into pop culture over the 15 years that this campaign has been live. So that's just a little bit of the background around the campaign and what it is for people who don't know, who have never seen it before, which I feel like is highly unlikely, but you never know.
Right.
And they say like the cool thing was within the first year of the campaign, their sales were up 15% and their market share had increased in over 50 different markets. So they likely started with it as a campaign back in 2010, saw this performance and growth and were like, okay, we've got something here. So they say that was back in 2010, but the world has changed a lot since then, obviously. But the big question is, does that matter? Which I think is a question that you and I ask as well. All of the time. So they say if you believe in the common theory of advertising wear out, then the age of an ad is a big mark against it. So believers in wear out hold that ads get less effective over time, whether it's a cultural change or simply inevitable based on people seeing the ad too many times.
Okay.
So System 1 has in their creative measurement and exploration, which they champion a lot. You should see on their platforms. We can share links to various things, but they say they've tried to look for evidence of wear out in their test your ad database several times. And so far they haven't found any. So they have not found any evidence that wear out is actually a thing. They say that ads rarely shift in effectiveness as they age. And if they do, they're as likely to wear in. So become more effective over time versus wear out. So they've also created this like compound creativity report that really dives into all of this. But their caution is that brands deciding to act successful campaigns simply because it's time for something new are making a serious error. So the point of talking about this right now is not just to talk about Snickers because it's an amazing brand and a great creative platform they've developed over time. But they say it's becoming more clear by the week, and we talk about this all the time as well, that we're living in uncertain times with recession potential looming. And when a recession arrives, we know from bitter experience that it's marketing budgets that are going to feel the squeeze. So with the fear of wear out dispelled, it's clear that careful reuse of old assets is viable and effective to manage tighter budgets. So I think that's why I think it's important for us to be talking about this right now. Like I said, not just that it's a fun thing to talk about, but that we are in times where more brands and probably more of our clients are likely thinking about reusing things, building on campaigns and creative that they've done in past years, and thinking about if that is a good thing to do or not a good thing to do. So Sean and I were recently in a pitch together, in a room together.
Been a while.
It had been a while. And it was in person, which was so fun.
Yes.
So we're there together and it's like 90 minutes or 2 hours or something. And the team has this whole thing that we're going to talk about, right? And the client almost stops us immediately to ask us about their creative campaign and platform. And and this exact question, basically, is it worth it to keep doing it and reuse it, or is it time for something new? So before we had a chance to share our entire kind of philosophy and what we do and all of those different things, they come out of the gate with this question.
So let's give context to anyone who's ever been in a boardroom with a presentation. I think they asked this on slide 6 of 45.
Which was like our intro slide. It was basically like, we're the strategy
team.
people. Here's the creative people. Here's the account people. They're like, strategy people, I'd like to ask if it's time to give up this campaign or if we should keep doing it. And we're like, there's the finance person. So yeah, it really just came up very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. So Sean, how did you feel in that moment? How do you feel about that question? Like, how do you feel that kind of scenario? And like, what was your answer? What did you think?
If I were the one pitching my business, I would have answered, I think I did answer that. We don't know yet.
That was your answer.
Okay.
In case you blacked out during that moment.
Yeah, I kind of did, because I just felt like
that is what you said.
Very like, I wasn't just pitching me, which is what I'm used to. Like I shouldn't say pitching me, but pitching a solution, which is what you and I do. Like when there's an opportunity, they're usually not, I don't know about you, but for me, it's like, it doesn't even feel like a pitch. All we're doing is telling them, we've taken a little bit of time and here's what we think, and here's what we think you should do. Very honestly and very upfront. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'll even have that conversation before any actual selling is done. Do you know what I mean? And yeah. I knew I wanted to answer, but I felt the majority of the people in that room weren't comfortable answering it. And I understand why.
How did you want to answer it? Let's pretend now that we're out of that room. Say you were out for lunch. What would you have said different? What would you have done differently?
I would have said, well, what do you think? 2 reasons. It's the best. It's the best way to deflect, but it also sets a conversation to say, if you don't know, or if you're asking other people, that's a problem.
And why? Why is that a problem?
Because if you look at the scenario of like, they're buying, we're selling, and they're asking the seller to tell them what we think of the thing that is the opportunity for us to replace.
So it's silly. What you're saying is it's silly as someone who's trying to win the business to tell them they don't need something new, right? Because they're being pitched by a variety of different agencies. The only way that you win and get to come in and do something new is if you tell them they need something new.
Yes.
Right, which may not be the right answer.
Yes.
It's only a self-serving answer.
I love the words you choose, but it's silly. That's what I would say. What do you think? Because yes, to deflect, but to put it back to them and see, how do they think? Do they see this as silly? Because clearly they don't.
Sorry, what is silly?
The scenario of going to a bunch of agencies, if the pressure is to create something that's going to have a longevity and to stick for so many years and continue to evolve and do all the things that something like the Snickers creative platform, let's call it that now, has done, there's so much expectation in a world where we don't know right now all the new technology and all the new behaviors and everything we're talking about with in the past with the messy middle and essentially the customer journey changing and this funnel being so vague to us because of technology and because of behaviors. That question, what do you think? You're the one who should know.
Right.
In a nice way.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a bold move, which I don't think is wrong for a strategist to say, I don't know. Like, people always want a strategist to say, here's what you should do, like, immediately. And you do have to be quite confident to be able to say, I don't know. So I would tell you one of two things, and it's based on performance. So
Right.
has it been performing for you? What are the metrics around it? Have you seen success with it? Have you seen a sale? Like, what are the things that you're tracking around this campaign to understand how it's doing? And based on how it's doing would be the thing that leads me to say we should keep going or we should switch it up. And I do think they are going to hear from all of the people in the room that it's time for something new, because to your point, that's how they win the business.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing in this T1 article around Snickers, which I didn't know before, and I think we do need to study more around this idea of compounding creativity and how it builds over time, was that they said, if you're on a banger of an idea, the first year, you're going to get that trajectory that Snickers got, right? Like you've got the increase in sales, you're doing well in all these markets. They said in the second year, you typically see a drop, but it's in the third, the fourth, the fifth, and onward that then it continues to grow. So I think it's hard for brands to be watching performance of campaigns, understand the theoretical research around what to expect performance-wise, that you're going to see that dip, and in these hard times, ride it out.
Yeah.
And have blind-ish faith, like it's not blind faith, but it's blind-ish faith that we're crossing our fingers that you are going to get to that third, fourth, fifth year spike.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to ride out a downturn. And if you believe enough in the idea and the longevity of it, then it's worth it to keep going. So that was my answer to the question. It was around performance. What are you seeing? What are we determining success is? Where are we at in the life cycle? And based on that, is it the right idea to keep going, or should we switch it up? And based on me asking them those things, it's also then saying, I don't know. I don't know until I know more.
Yeah. I question, if you guys know anything about me, my sort of mecca is Think Different, and the campaign that Apple launched so long ago. And I remember when you and I first kind of dove into it early on, and it was the idea that like, oh my God, this was so brilliant. They really understood the consumer, and there must have been a brilliant strategy behind it. And that was like 25, 30 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And I researched, and basically it was actually just Apple was in a bad place. It was like all hands on deck, all these agencies competing. And there was this brilliant idea that they were like, great, we don't have time. We're going to go with that. And it was their Think Different campaign. And it blew up. I was kind of like, oh no, there was no strategy behind it. And to be honest, 30 years ago was strategy in marketing, specifically advertising, even a thing. So what it taught me is exactly what you're saying with Snickers, is to respect the fact that it's not about coming up with the big idea, hoping it will be a success. It's about understanding what to do once it succeeds. Or maybe in its first year, it doesn't succeed, but it shows you or teaches you a lot. Like, you know what? It's not worth spending money trying something different. Let's really test and measure and see why it's not performing. Because the one thing that's true is whatever that idea should be, it needs to be about brand. It needs to be for a brand who knows who they are, who understand who they are to what people. And then the creative, once the creative is fed by that, it will perform. But not in one quarter, not in 2 quarters. And I think what is happening a lot is they're trying to emulate a Snickers kind of idea without respecting that Snickers probably made a lot of mistakes beforehand. And they may even have made mistakes with that platform, but
I'm sure. Yeah.
But they stuck it out. And I remember we've talked about these things. What people don't recognize is when those brands with those brilliant creative platforms do something that doesn't work, they don't trash it. They realize that it is the brand that has to stand behind it and either say, yep, that was a mistake, but to stick to, commit to, we know this is who we are. Maybe there was a misstep. Maybe we thought something that wasn't true. Well, then let's talk about that one thing. Let's not throw it all out.
Yeah. I think they also say in that article too that the key is what they call these like fluent devices. So something that is an insight that doesn't get old, or an insight that can have legs over time. So like,
Yeah.
you're not you when you're hungry can apply to so many different scenarios and so many different things, and evolve with culture and tap into culturally relevant insights as time evolves, and the platform can evolve as time evolves. Right. So I think it would be worth anyone listening to this episode as well, and we'll highlight it, looking at these fluent devices. Because if you think you've hit on something like that, then it's also an indicator that you will be able to extend this over time in different ways that can show up as relevant over perhaps a 15-year time period. Like, it's very, very interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
But we are out of time for this episode. So thanks, Sean, for discussing this Snickers campaign and this idea of wear out versus wear in. I think it's super fascinating. And I hope everyone enjoyed this episode.
Bye, Marketeers.
Thank you. Have a great day, Marketeers. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Two Marketeers Podcast. New episodes launch every 2 weeks.
Find the Two Marketeers Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you like to listen. And be sure to rate and subscribe.
Listen on our website, thetwomarketeers.ca, or you can ask Alexa to play the Two Marketeers Podcast.
Want to keep in touch? Follow the Two Marketeers on LinkedIn or at Two Marketeers on TikTok. We've always got something to share.
This podcast is over.